Okay, looks like we're getting started here. So pretty much, prologue is pretty simple. Hopefully no one will die here. It does happen though sometimes, and that is just not fun.
So for those that may have not seen Celeste before, Celeste is a precision platformer. Very simple in nature. It only has 3 buttons, dash, climb, and jump. But it's one of those easy to learn, difficult to master type of games. So
and then really the only big optimization so far is they're jumping really quickly because each jump saves a couple of frames. It's not really anything big, but there's a lot of jumps.
For this tournament, we will be using the in-game timer that you guys can see in the top left. If the players are on PC, their live split on the bottom will stop whenever they're in between chapters and be synced up with their in-game timer. You'll see that the game very quickly escalates to very fast from the prologue here. You want to talk a little bit about dashing, Cookie?
So basically, dashing has there's a ton of different ways to dash, and that's really what makes this game such a good speed game. Like, there's just the normal dash, which is kind of lame, but it's an important movement option sometimes. And then probably the most important thing about this run is the dash jump and the hyper jump. Basically, the dash jump is just a dash and then a jump. And then a hyper is when you actually hold down while doing a dash jump, and it gives you extra speed but less height. And then another important thing is basically, because of how this game's momentum works, you lose speed a bit slower in the air than on the ground. So if you wait until right after your dash ends and then jump, you can regain your dash but still have most of the speed. And that's fast, and it's actually needed in a lot of places.
Yeah, we're going to see right here, both players attempting the neutral wall jumps on this last screen here. So Madeline usually consumes stamina while climbing up a wall, but if you kick away from a wall, it doesn't consume any stamina. So by moving the character back towards the wall after jumping away from the wall, the players are able to preserve their stamina and get to the top of that wall. It's a nice little speed tech there.
Yeah, neutral wall jumping isn't a super big thing, but it saves a lot of time in like a couple of different places.
And the nice thing about Celeste is that every chapter has like its own theme, so to speak. And chapter 2 is where we are introduced to the theme of the dream bubble here. And you'll see on Revel's side right now, dream blocks are essentially infinite dashes if you dash into them, but if you go into a wall, you die. So the players are, you know, precisely aiming the angles of their dashes to get to where they want to go as fast as possible. It's a nice little mechanic.
And now another part of this chapter is we're moving into the battle and fight, where basically she just follows you and is like a couple seconds behind where you are. So you got to be a little careful for that sometimes. It's not a big deal in these first few rooms, but in the last 2, it can be a big problem, and you can lose like 10 or 15 seconds if you die.
This screen that Revel's on the side here is the first introduction to the lock switches. Basically, some coins are placed throughout the screen, and you have to collect all the coins to open the door. There's going to be a more convoluted version of that puzzle coming up on the next screen here. And you can see it can get a little hectic with all the battle lines running around. Whether you get the switches on the first try. So nice of Revel to get through
Both
there.
runners, though, having a fairly solid chapter. Everything's always a little scary in those last couple of rooms, but fortunately no one died.
Yeah, sub 130 coming out of that battle line section is pretty good. We'll see their final times here in just a sec, as they go through the infamous awake section. If you saw the task at GDQ, this section might have looked a little bit different.
But unfortunately, even the second place runner can't do it in real time. It's a little bit too hard.
Gab getting a little tripped up here on the last few screens of the awake section.
Yeah, moving fast in these chapters is actually a lot harder than it looks. That's honestly probably one of the hardest parts of that chapter.
I know it's where I lose the most time for sure. So here we have the players entering Celestial Resort. There's chapter 3. Chapter 3 is based in a hotel where our ghost friend Oshiro wants you to stay. Madeline's just trying to find her way out the back. You're introduced to these dust creatures all over that if she touches any of them, she'll die. So in your casual playthrough, you might have experienced a pretty big difficulty spike in this section here. And we'll see how the players maneuver through it. Revo manages to maintain his dash on that very small platform, which is really difficult to do, but then dies on the dust creature.
Yeah, for the most part, the movement and the areas you're dashing and doing movement in the first 2 chapters is really open, and then this chapter kind of tightens up all the space a little bit and is way harder. Especially with stuff like this huge mess section, just getting through this room fast is super weird. But it if you figure everything out, it goes pretty well, just like there from Revo's side.
Gab had a very good intro here on the right hand side, and he's just entering the huge mess section now. Huge Mess is a section of Chapter 3 that has 3 branching paths, one that leads to the boxes, one that leads to the books, and one that leads to the towels. You can do the paths in any order, but most players will generally do them in the order that Revolution is doing them right now, which is boxes, then books, then towels. Oshiro always appears in the same place when you exit the section, so generally, you want to do the sections that leave you closest to Oshiro to minimize travel time in the big room. Very nice jump there from Gab. Getting the only true spike jump in the game there. We didn't talk about spike jumps at all in Chapter 1, but in this game, spikes don't actually damage you if you're moving away from them. So what you do in that screen there is you actually jump past the spikes from behind them, and because you're jumping away from them, the spikes don't hurt you and you're able to jump off the wall behind the spikes. It's a nice little piece of speed tech there. And Revo hitting the last switch here at the end of Huge Mess, which removes the last bit of obstacles and unlocks the key. And here we'll say hello to Oshiro for the 3rd time. Because this game allows you to skip cutscenes, you may have not even realized that we had been talking to Oshiro this whole time, but that's what's been allowing us to progress through the hotel. Revo with some sick wall bounces to get through these screens here, really showing how fast optimized movement can look.
Yeah, this has been a really clean chapter, except for a couple mistakes early on, but also jumping through those platforms really well. That previous room with the key is really precise, and if you mess it up, it can easily lead to more mistakes if you're not used to the death cycle. But now Revo's going into the Oshiro fight itself. Basically, he's not a big deal for the main start of this, but towards the end he kind of becomes an issue sometimes. You just gotta make sure you know where he is always. Ooh, that's an unfortunate there.
Revolution's style of running is very aggressive. He loves to go for the fastest strats possible. That definitely lends him to be a little bit more prone to deaths than some of the more consistent runners, but because Celeste the game revives you on at the beginning of whatever screen you die on. It's not always like a really big time loss to die, so it works out sometimes to be aggressive. And here we're gonna see Gab entering the Oshiro segment. I think that was a 4:53, even with deaths, which is really good time for Revo. So Revo's entering Chapter 4 here. Chapter 4 introduces a few new mechanics. It introduces clouds, which lets you bounce higher. Bubbles, which are essentially a dash in the air. They just launch you in a certain direction. And then this wind that destroys bit rates on most computers, so it's going to be pretty hard to see. But the wind just exactly what it sounds like, just pushes Madeline in whatever way it's facing. Like this screen, it pushes her forward, and the previous screen, it pushed her back. And Gab getting through Chapter 3.
That's still a very solid Chapter 3. Like, Revo's just crazy at this game. 550 is not bad.
There's also these dash platforms that you'll see on Revo's screen here, and what he did there was a neat little trick. The way this game stores momentum allows Madeline to jump a little bit further if she has that block pushing her, which allows her to clear a gap that otherwise she wouldn't be able to make with her own normal momentum. So we activate that block and have it push us along the way, and then we dash with that momentum and add that momentum to our own. That's really nice. Chapter 4 is generally pretty short, but it is considered one of the more difficult chapters in the speed game. There's just so many different mechanics that you have to be aware of, like at all times, between the wind and the dashing and the momentum and the clouds. Every little mistake winds you up in a pit or a spike, so it can be pretty difficult.
And now also coming up in the next room for Revo is where these snowballs start to get introduced. And they're kind of similar to Oshiro, but come more often and from the other side. And these actually, if you know what you're doing, they're not too hard to deal with, and we actually use them in 2 different rooms.
Yeah, cycle-based mechanics are those mechanics that, like, the better you are at the game, the less they bother you, because you deal with the cycle less often. So for like a new runner, it could be like very problematic, the snowballs or Oshiro, but once you get to like Revo's level, like you'll see he only saw like maybe like 1 or 2 snowballs max per screen, because he's going like so fast through the screen. So Revo's showing like, if you hate snowballs, just get fast and you'll be able to.
Yeah, he had a really nice sub 3 there. So now the Mirror Temple introduces these dash blocks. Really, these aren't that important to the run. There are a couple of weird strats that we can pull off with them because of the way our Madeline's momentum works, and you'll probably see that in a couple of rounds.
Generally, this first segment here requires you to go to the left and use a red bubble, which launches you infinitely, unlike the green bubbles, which are just a dash distance, to get to the right where the key is.
So this room right here from Revo is weird.
Oh,
and he got the corner boost too, so he can just skip the next room.
So Revo has been advocating that strat.
He's not going for double bubble skip.
Revo's been advocating that strat for weeks. like talking about how much he practices it. I'm really happy he got it in his first race. But yeah, basically what happened there was when he dashed, the platform zipped to the right, and he was on the platform. So he used the momentum of the platform zipping to launch himself across the room, and then by bunny hopping, like Cookie mentioned in the prologue, he's able to accelerate a little bit and maintain his momentum. And then with a corner boost, which is a technique where you fly into a corner with a lot of momentum and then press grab and jump on the right time, you're able to maintain the momentum past the corner. So he did 3 techniques in one to launch himself through that giant room. And yeah, it's really tight and really difficult. So Gab finishing up chapter 4 here. With only 6 deaths, that's pretty good. You'd be surprised how quickly deaths accumulate in this game.
So now Revo's moving into the Seekers. These guys can feel really weird and luck-based sometimes, but they are 100% based on where you move. So most of the time we can just make them do what we want. Or at least make them not an issue.
And all these screens have these lock switches that we talked about earlier that prevent you from just exiting the screen, so you have to go around and collect everything with the Seeker chasing you. Revo's about halfway through Mirror Temple here. It's making a really good time. Gab is proceeding through the dub section here. And yeah, learning to maintain your dash after dashing is pretty important in this game, as you can see from Revo's stream.
How is he doing all of this? This is crazy.
Okay,
I've never
so
seen like half of this.
Revo has the best Theo section out of everybody in the Celeste community. He's the only person I can think of that uses ultras with Theo. So an ultra is canceling a hyperdash into another hyperdash, and because of the way Theo preserves your momentum when you pick him up, ultraing into him allows you to go really, really fast right after you pick him up. So if you needed somebody to watch to learn the Theo sections, this is your man right here.
This is actually a really good Theo section from him too. It's looking like he'll probably end up with around a 425 Mirror Temple, which is really great, and it's like 5 seconds off IO world record.
Very nice from
Oh, 422, that's crazy.
Almost breaking the IL record during a race on stream. That's crazy. This man is so good. And now we have Gab entering the Seeker section here. Gab has been having a good Mirror Temple too. Like it's hard to express like how well Gab is playing because you guys are able to see, you know, someone who's world record capable on the left hand side. But Gab is playing like really, really, really well. Very minimal deaths in all of these chapters and getting through these chapters very consistently. Revel is attempting a skip here called Lake Skip, where you dash up and wall bounce off the very bottom corner of that spike rack. There you go. And there's actually no spikes on the bottom corner, so you're able to bounce around the spikes and skip walking all the way around to activate the crush block.
Yeah, and then also the other like main mechanic here is these feathers that can be a little wonky to control sometimes, but Revo's at least really solid.
I didn't even know you could do that.
Yeah, same.
Gab having a really good search section, and now he's entering the Theo section. Revo is entering a section called Hollows in Chapter 6, where there's actually branching paths, but which way to go for the fastest route is pretty much universally agreed upon, except for the last fork. So Revo is just going to be following a set path here to get through this segment. This chapter also introduces these pinball bumpers that bounce Madeline back whenever she touches them in the direction she came from. So like right here, you'll see he'll be bouncing on top of them to get his dash back and then get to the next one. But they also serve as obstacles, as in that room right there. And this is the last branching path that some players go south and some players go north. Revo's actually trying to do a hidden tech here where if you hold away from a bumper as you touch it, you actually get launched further away from the bumper. So he's trying to skip the second bumper by getting what we call a bumper boost off of the first one to make it further into the room. Gab entering the last screen here, Mirror Temple. Oh, Revo's gonna go for a strat. No, he did it. He convinced me to go for a very dangerous strat in that screen. I'm surprised he did it.
No, he actually did go for it, and he like bounced off the bubble and then died.
I was checking out Gab's ending, so I missed it.
Yeah, even though Revo does have like a very solid lead, Gab's run is going really well.
So on this next screen coming up after this water segment, there's actually a nice skip here. Where if you use the momentum from the crush block that Revo is going to be standing on, he also does a lot of swag dancing on these crush blocks because he can. If you use the momentum from the block, you actually can fly into the next screen a little bit earlier and with a lot of momentum and skip a little bit of a jumping section there. So this is the battle line fight of Chapter 6. Basically, Battleline and Madeline have had enough of each other, and they're going at it. And obviously, the only way to settle the fight is to run your face into each other. So that's what Revo's doing here to deal with Battleline every screen. You can't advance to the next screen until you make Battleline leave the screen, so you have to hit her regardless of where she is. Luckily, she never loops back the way she came. She always advances towards the exit. Nice neutral wall down from Gab there. Revo has a nice wall bounce shot for that screen right there. And he's probably going to do an ultra here. Oh no, accidentally gets to further. Oh, that was neat. So what Revo just did was he dashed past the corner, and on his way past the corner, he actually wall jumped off the corner. And that gave him a little bit of extra distance with his dash that you normally wouldn't get, and it allowed him to reach Battleline from the other side of that wall there. Corner mechanics in this game tend to be very precise as far as where you have to be to execute them, so the fact that Revo goes for them in runs is really impressive. Gab's answering the last fork and hollows here.
And now Revo's just in the last couple of rooms of this battle and fight here, and at this point it's mostly just feather movement, so it should be fairly consistent, but taking a death on one of these screens can easily lose like 10 or 15 seconds.
Yeah, these are... Because of the way you respawn in Celeste, the longer the screen, the worse the death. It's not usually like about the difficulty of the trick. Other games, it's usually like, oh, I went for a really difficult trick, I failed it, so I lost 15 seconds. But this game is more like, I went for a trick at the end of a really long room, so I lost 15 seconds, which it's kind of in like, rewards you for, I guess, for going for aggressive strats, because you don't get punished as hard, which we talked about earlier. Revo is officially wrapped up chapter 6 here. And at the end of that chapter, you might have realized that his hair was pink after talking to Battleline, and basically at the end of chapter 6, the story advances, and what happens is Battleline and Madeline fuse together, and you are rewarded with an additional dash in the air. So chapter 7 here, the summit, you're going to see there's a lot less floor and a lot more using your dash. Gab is entering the battle line fight here. So chapter 7 is a culmination of all the chapters. Basically, after every segment, you're going to be... At the end of chapter 5, Madeline fell off the mountain and fell all the way to the bottom. So here, the first segment is where she met Battleline, and then the next segment is going to be chapter 1 all over again. So you're going to see the influences of the zippers and the spikes, and then chapter 2 will be next with the dream blocks and the castle, and you're going to see that progress through till the end of the game. And it's basically how you use your new dash with the old mechanics, and it's a really interesting way of bringing everything back. Revo having some issues with this jump here. He gets it there though, that's nice. This is the secret back path up the mountain. Much less screens, much less floor. That was an interesting strat. I'm not sure it saved time, but it was interesting nonetheless. So here we have the dream blocks again, and because you have an additional dash now, what Revo is going to be doing here is he's going to be doing hyper dashes out of the dream blocks because he'll still be able to dash a second time. A lot of these screens are chaining dream blocks into each other, and because you in chapter 2 you only had one dash, you had to dash into the dream block to be able to enter it. So if you tried to chain dash it, if you tried to hyper out of a dream block, you wouldn't be able to have a dash to chain into the next one. So because chapter 7 gives you extra dashes, you can see Revo is going to be doing ultras and hypers out of these to move faster through the screens. Very nice there. Gab is entering the second half of the battle line fight here. I'm nice and patient through these jumping segments here, making sure not to die. Dying is the worst thing you can do in Celeste, because there's no enemies, there's no bad RNG, there's no nothing. But the only way you lose time is if you die.
So this 1,500 meters portion of Summit is probably one of the hardest parts of this whole game, but Revo's just been blasting through it super fast. And that's actually like the really nice part about this whole section. It's really challenging, but once you get all the fast strats down, it's super cool.
Yeah, fun fact, Revo was one of the first people to start running like the Summit IL like on its own. So, and when we say IL, we mean like the individual level. So, and attempting to get the record for it. So I think he might have been one of the first people to sub 9 Summit, and he's just like really experienced at this level. So watching him run through it is a treat, basically.
And really, the big thing about the second dash, on top of like it just being another dash, so you can go a lot farther, it also allows us to ultra dash a lot more, and that just gives us more speed, makes everything more fun.
Now we have Gab going through the summon base here, and Revo styling around this auto scroller. We have our good old friend the wind back. Unfortunately, it will not be exclusive to the Chapter 4 segment of the summit. It will return later at the end.
So now up here in this next room, Revo is going to hold neutral on that wall and then do 2 quick wall jumps. It kind of looks like you're jumping off the spikes, but as long as you just don't hold any directions and jump fast enough, you actually don't die. Because spikes don't work.
Yeah, so the developers of this game, they're really against literal hitboxes, or like for enemies. So they think it leads to a lot of situations where you're like, I was nowhere near that, or whatever like that, because, you know, the hitbox might overlap for just a second. So they're very generous with the way they designed hitboxes in this game. So you can get awfully close to spikes or dust creatures or whatever the case may be, and not necessarily die. The speedrunners use that a lot throughout the run to barely graze surfaces that you might think would have killed you, but in reality the hitbox doesn't extend that far. So here we have 3,000 meters. It's the last segment of the summit. Culmination of all of Madeline's hard work. It's literally a vertical wall she's scaling here. There's no platforms for her to go up. It introduces these flag checkpoints here. There's 30 of them. Revo just passed 28, I believe. Not 26. This is 25. But yeah, basically if you touch them, that's where you will respawn when you die. Revo doesn't care. Revo has no plans of dying. He's just gonna go as fast as he can. This is, you may have noticed that the wind is back and it's actually facing down for the first time. We call this downdraft. It actually essentially gives you more gravity. It makes it harder to jump around. So it's really difficult. But Revo has finished the downdraft section, and now he'll be in updraft, which is like being underwater in Mega Man. Every time you jump, you're much floatier. I'm pretty sure Gab is on PB pace. He's been having a really good run.
Although, of course, you can kind of see from like his run right here how challenging these rooms in 1,500 meters can be if you make a small mistake.
Yep, again, those cycle-based rooms, like the longer you have to spend in them, the more you have to know about the room, because if the cycle's looping and looping, and you being in a different spot every time. Oh no, he takes an unfortunate death. This screen is actually pretty long, so dying in that screen is not good. But he makes it through there on the second try, which is nice. Revo just hit flag 10. Well, didn't actually hit it, so if he dies, he won't respawn there. But just making quick work. That's gonna be flag 9. And he has only 2 more screens left in the summit. And that was one of them. So Revo's now on the last screen of the game. Thanks to the flag system, it's not as brutal as if you die, but it is a very, very long screen. Oh no! That was such an unfortunate mistake for Gab. His character accidentally dashed down into the spike instead of to the right.
And now Revo's hit the last checkpoint, so at this point he should not have any chance of dying, but we can't always say that. And okay, yeah, it looks like
he almost retried.
Okay, he's finished. With a 32:39. That's about a minute behind his PB, but that is still a really solid time, especially for a race.
So Gab here is working through the 2,000 meter section of Summit here, which is the chapter 4 section. Could still maybe PB with some good final segments here. So let's see. This is the Mirror Temple segment. This is you'll be able to see now the trick Cookie was talking about, because Revo did it so fast. I think we all missed it. But basically it's intended for you to use one of these red bubbles to launch yourself up to the key, but getting to the bubble is very time consuming. So what the speedrunners do instead is they do 2 wall jumps and then use both their dashes to ascend through the corridor, and it gives you just enough height to make it through to the key. It's gonna be right up here. Nice. Gets it on the second jump, that's really good. This room could be a little tricky. Maintaining your dashes properly. Nice.
Yeah, and especially this room is probably one of the most punishing to die in the whole game. Especially if you die at the end, you can lose like 20 seconds. I know that I've just like walked into spikes at the last second and like killed runs just from that.
Okay, so Gab is going to need a pretty good 3,000 meters here to PB. See if he can get it. So I think joining us was Revo. I think I just heard somebody enter the channel.
Yeah, Revo's here. He's
GG's, Revo. Congratulations
Good
on
job
your
on that
win.
race. That was sick.
I didn't hear you. What did you say? Gab getting through the downdraft section here. Nice. Not too many hiccups there.
Oh, right, my microphone was very far from me.
There you go. Hello, friend.
Yeah, I put my microphone on my head for the race, and I forget.
And Gab is just finishing up here. It's an updraft right now. Really close on PB pace, but it's gonna be tight at the end.
Yeah, as easy as Revolution made these rooms look, they're all pretty hard.
And some of these flags,
May I
especially
have
like the
some
one he's on
issues
now,
with the phone?
some of these flags are really long, is what I was gonna say.
And this something.
Oh, maybe Revo couldn't hear us. Can you hear us now, friend? I'll take that as a no.
Maybe say stop streaming. Apparently this should work now.
Can you hear us? Yeah, I don't think he can hear us. I messaged him to have Cyclone help him fix it. Yeah, only 3 flags left for Gabs here.
This is really coming down to the last couple of seconds here on these. Because he's had a couple of unfortunate deaths that have lost a decent amount of time.
Okay, I think he might have it.
Okay, he's at flag 1. He should be in the clear to get like a small 10-second PB. It's nice.
Yo, nice.
Even
Congrats
with
to
the trouble
Gab.
on Summit, he still gets it with a 40-41. Yeah, 40-41.
It's not a bad run at all. But yeah, that was a pretty good race. Revo having 30 deaths and still having a 32 with only 6 less deaths than Gab. Congrats on the PB, Gab. I don't know if you wanted to come into the Discord. Let me go check on Revo, see if he wants to say anything. Okay, so now joining us with a working sound system.
It's functional now.
Revolution. How are you doing? Congrats on the win.
Yeah, thanks. Well, that was actually a spicy race until reflection, and I don't know, my brain just stopped working in reflection, and it stayed not working until the end of the run, I guess. But I commit the little mistake of watching live split just between tempo and reflection, and I was 2 seconds ahead. But well,
so you're saying those nerves kicked in.
Yeah, I was not expecting that tempo. That was good.
At least taking head like that.
Yeah, I was a 423 with the deaths. I think I died a lot in this run.
Only 30 times.
Yeah,
better than most people.
I actually tend to die a lot. I play like way too aggressive, and that's what happens.
No, but it's good to stay warmed up too, so it works both ways.
Yeah.
So now that your first tournament match is in the books, how are you feeling?
Well, that was super hype actually. I was like, I only slept for like 4 hours and I couldn't sleep again until the race. I wanted to take a nap, but it was impossible. Hype is real. So I'm really excited about this tournament. So let's see how that goes. For now, that was super fun. The first race was, I started a little nervous, but it was super fun when the run was going. I was not reading the chat, but probably I'll watch the video again later.
Yeah, this is one of those games that it's almost impossible to look at chat and play the game at the same time.
Yeah,
the game is
definitely.
so fast.
I don't know how TGH does that actually.
Well, I mean, he always does say that like he dies because he looks at the chat. So does he really do it?
Yeah, he's always closing the chat in the last part of the summit, anyways. You can see him when he's minimizing the chat. But well, that was super fun. So how the commentary went?
It was a blast. It was really fun to watch. You were even doing stuff that I watch your runs, and I still was seeing stuff that I'm like, I've never seen that before. So even as someone who watches your runs, I still get to see new stuff.
I felt the bumper stride in reflection, the one I was so proud of.
I was disappointed when you didn't go for it again, but it's okay. Yeah. I forgive you.
So, it's Gab actually joining this, or because congratulations to Gab for getting that PB. That's super nice. The first PB on this tournament.
Yeah, he was actually like on pace to probably a sub 40. But just had a couple of unfortunate deaths in Summit. He had one at the end of that really long snowball screen right before the auto scroller. Madeline dashed down instead of forward for no reason at the end of the screen. So instead of going over the spike, he went into the spike. It was a heartbreaker, but he was playing so well. I'm sure he'll get another PB like really, really soon.
Yeah, sure. There are other 6 matches for him in the group stage, so surely he'll work on that.
So that's gonna do it here for this match. For those of you that maybe are not too familiar with Celeste, there's going to be a lot more Celeste tournament matches going on Speed Gaming over the next few weeks. The tournament just started today, so it's going to be a really fun few weeks here. Get to see a lot of Celeste. We're going to have I know the Speed Gaming channel is doing some Final Fantasy 1 tonight and some Super Metroid plus Link to the Past randomizer combinations later on tonight as well. So if you're interested in more people going fast and cool games, check out Speed Gaming 1 later tonight. That being said, I think there's another match tonight at 7 on this channel for Celeste, so you guys can definitely tune in for that. It was pleasure. I had a ton of fun. So I'll definitely be back with more commentary in the near future. Cookie, any final words on your end?
No, I don't really have anything to say. I just really enjoyed that race. So, like, make sure to follow these runners because they're both like sick at this game, and they're improving too. This game is just great.
This game is so worldwide. Both of these runners from South America. We have runners in the tournament from Canada, from the US, from Europe, from Australia. Like, we have literally runners from everywhere. This game is great. It's bringing everybody together. So for that, I think we're going to be signing off. Have a good one, guys.
Goodbye forever.
See ya, guys.